Greetings travellers, this is Nemo60 here with you once again. I used to believe in dragons. I'm not making this up. When I was about 17 years old, I watched a drama documentary entitled Dragons, a Fantasy Made Real, which portrayed scientists who discovered the frozen corpse of a dragon going into the evolutionary history of dragons and giving a scientific sounding explanation as to how dragons existed. I won't go into all the details here, but I will link the documentary down below in the description bar if I manage to find it on YouTube or elsewhere. I explained what I thought to my friends and posted it on internet forums. Yes, I was a net noob back then, but there you go. I got comments like, "My little friend says it's stupid to believe in things that don't exist." It didn't seem to matter how many times I would explain the reasons or how much I thought it made sense, I would get the same mocking response every time about how dragons certainly did not exist. It took me a while to actually get a decent response and explanation as to why my theories, or the theories I had repeated about dragons, were actually, not valid. Or at least how the physics of how they are depicted in popular mythology were unrealistic. Such as the physics of having, such a huge jawed flying creature, the amount of food to feed them, and so on. Interestingly enough, it was actually videos on creationism on YouTube that actually, taught me more about paleontology and how scientists can actually read the bones properly to understand how the skeletal structure was set up. Where am I going with this? Well, as I have explained, the first thing that I encountered when making such pseudo-scientific arguments was mockery and ridicule. My beliefs were not taken seriously enough to have a rational argument laid against it. Even if it may or may not have changed my opinions on the matter, so I retreated further into the pseudoscience thinking of phrases like, dragons have not been found because because scientists are biased against the idea, taking any evidence of dragons such as dinosaur bones. The same could be said for mockery of theists by atheists. If we hear a theist instantly jump to mocking them, then they will turn off completely from reasonable discussion and argument because they don't feel that you can take them seriously enough to really counter any arguments and instead throw honoring attacks, and that you are the one who is closed-minded and just dismissing out of hand any arguments that you may give. But let's look at the other side of the coin for a moment. Let's suppose I argued that dragons exist because there was this huge conspiracy of scientists who are lying to cover up the persecution and extinction of dragons in the ancient world, as have been done with many other species in history. A person comes along and systematically give the evidence to the contrary, points about bone structure, physics, and so on and so forth that completely debunk the theory. I then respond with numerous strawman arguments and accusing this person of being a shill for the conspirators. After this goes on for a good long while, if I were not to change my arguments at all, you could understand where people would get fed up and start to ridicule me for having a dogmatic and ridiculous belief. The same can be said for users such as Coctopus Prime, who for some reason YouTube never updated my subscriber box, that's around another time, and the living dinosaur. They have seen the dishonesty of creationists in Fox News who spout the same ridiculous nonsense time and time again and never show a shred of intellectual honesty. When dealing with people like Glenn Beck, Shane DK and P.P. Simmons, it would get very hard to not start describing them in numerous words of various flowery language variety. But it's not the same for every theist. As such, it's not the same for every person with a right-wing or libertarian political belief. In Holy Hallucinations 12, the living dinosaur dealt with a newbie creationist who was repeating arguments based on a creationist textbook that was largely on the fence of the matter. The living dinosaur quite clearly explained how his mockery was aimed at the dishonest liars who created the textbook, Ray Cameron, jumbling up the names, Kurt Cameron and Ray Comfort, rather, and how she was being deceived about the real facts of the matter, as well as many of the tactics that creationists use to deceive the gullible audience into thinking that they have more validity than the scientists do. And this is how I feel we should deal with someone like Jack, aka Together for Peace, who recently suggested that atheists who are against racism are hypocrites if they are mocking theists. Christians have a history of a persecution complex when they don't get their way, suggesting that secularism, or in layman's terms, neutral ground for religion or lack thereof, is destroying morality and the roots of Christianity in America, so it would all be too easy to shove Jack into this kind of category because of his beliefs as a Christian. I do think it is, however, worth pointing out to Jack that there is a difference between mocking what we see as an absurd idea that has been long since demolished and mocking you as a person. I am no fan of Christianity or religion in general, as I see the concept of original sin as the equivalent of being guilty before proven innocent and being punished for crimes severely of a trivial nature. Racism is where you consider a person to be of non-white ethnicity to be of a lesser human being and not deserving as the same rights as we are because they have something they are born with, the colour of their skin. This is not the same as picking apart the belief in a supernatural, which we have to learn about and hear concepts to believe in them in the first place. I hope that my fellow atheists can understand how frustrating it is to be mocked and ignored when you're trying to make a valid point about religion. Creationists and apologists do this all the time by describing a scientific process of evolution as evolutionism, when they themselves jump to great lengths to justify the horrific acts of the Bible. They are the people who are deserving of mockery because they have shown themselves to be idiotic liars who use any underhanded tactics to distract and discredit a robust scientific theory in favour of their own mythology. In the words of Anthrax, we only see in black and white when it comes to someone else's fight. As such, it's important not to fall into the realms of black and white when dealing with particular Christians, because we risk shunning Christians like Rational Roundtable, who are more honest and genuine and fair human beings and genuinely discuss issues with atheists and may very well have support for efforts in many issues concerning the world today, such as the preservation of science education and defending human rights. So, I would conclude that mockery does have its place in debating, but it should be reserved for a last resort for the idiots who stick their fingers in their ears while spouting the same old nonsense rather than actually listening to anything that we have to say. In that situation, the best outcome we can hope for is venting our frustration and show how utterly moronic these people are, in the hope that the less educated but still open-minded amongst us will look at these people and go, wait, are they really serious? In my teenage years, I was on the fence about religion, but my time on YouTube and seeing what creationists actually believe has greatly opened my mind and educated me to become the rational person that I believe myself to be today. Until the next time, safe travels.